Welcome to Career Tipper Podcast, hosted by Michelle Beatty. The Career Tipper Podcast is a motivational resource that shares career and entrepreneurial tips by industry experts that will help amazing people evolve to their professional best. And now your host, Michelle Beatty.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Career Tipper Podcast that features digital marketing and growth consultant Danielle Leslie. She is the founder of Culture Ad Labs, where she helps brands and startup founders create and launch online courses. Previously, she worked as a course launch strategist at Udemy, where she helped influencers including Guy Kawasaki earn collectively millions of dollars by monetizing their content and expertise through online courses. She has created courses that have over 50,000 people enrolled around the world. She's a former startup founder and currently supports startups and personal brands with product launches and growth consulting. In 2016, she launched her Course from Scratch program, an 8-week online accelerator for first-time course creators. I'm your host, Michelle Beatty, career confidence author and coach. Danielle, welcome to the Career Tipper Podcast.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Super excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here because I want my listeners to hear your journey to where you are today, how you became over a 6-figure earner for not only teaching your classes, but helping others do the same. So what was your path to becoming a digital marketing influencer?
Yeah, so I gotta say, I've been in the game for a minute. Back in college is when I first got introduced, to the online world. And I would say it was 2012 or 2011 when I saw my first video from Brendon Burchard. And he was just talking about this concept of taking your skills, your expertise, your unique story, the ups, the downs, and, turning it into some kind of digital product or service that you could use to teach others and get paid for it. And that was my first point of exposure to this, what I consider like an underground world that a lot of people don't know exists. And from there, I learned about Marie Forleo and just more people after that. From there, I was kind of like off to the races, and I became obsessed with learning about how to create an online course, how to coach others, how to get paid, get paid speaking engagements, how to do high paying consulting. So over the course of my career, I kind of was able to do that in different capacities, whether it was, at first figuring things out on my own, all the way to working at Udemy, and then post Udemy, starting my consulting and then my digital products. So it's been kind of a long journey here since 2011.
I think it's been an amazing journey. When I first met you, and started following you, I Googled you and I found all your old YouTube videos. And
oh my gosh. Oh, Lord, I was doing the most, looking crazy.
But I think it's awesome to witness where you started to where you are now. It was not an overnight moment. It took time, it took practice, it took trial and, lessons. And so I think it was cool when I came across all those YouTube videos.
Awesome.
So what was your path to becoming, or to not only to becoming, but to launching Culture Ad Labs? How did you know that was your purpose?
Yeah, so I had just finished, to take you kind of to, where things started. I had just finished co-founding a startup, raised money, went through an accelerator program, got press. We did all the right things, in quotes. And but 2 years later, we were left with kind of no customers and no revenue and really no hope. And so that's when I moved back in with my mom. And that's when I first saw, the Brendon Burchard video and the Marie Forleo. And I went on this path. So I worked for myself for about a year, just doing some coaching, trying to figure things out. I did my very first online course launch, which was a complete and utter flop. And after that, I realized, there's a difference between knowing the tactics and having tact. And I knew all the tactics. I was reaching out to affiliates, doing webinars, but I didn't have the right tact. I didn't have the right strategy. And I knew that I needed to join a team to learn from them. I needed more of a roadmap. So that's when I created my dream role at Udemy. Luckily they were looking for someone kind of like me, but I showed them, I was like, hey, y'all, I'm super passionate about this. Here's what I've done. And so I got to work at Udemy. So, from 2012 to 2015, I was there for as the kind of in-house course launch coach. And anyone who came on the platform, I would work with them, whether it was through the courses I created or over the phone, advising them. But I would essentially get on the phone and find out, okay, who's your perfect customer profile? What language can we speak to get their attention? Where can we reach them? And how can we launch your course strategically? So after doing that for a few years, I got the attention of another startup. So I was recruited there. I worked there for about 7 months, and then I was laid off unexpectedly. So here I was, former, director of marketing for this like hot up and coming startup, killing it, to being like laid off and with no job and like, oh shoot, should I go get another full-time job as director of marketing at another startup, or should I try to do my own thing? And I'll tell you, I was not ready to do my own thing because the way that ended up last time, I was in my Berkeley hoodie sitting on my mom's, chair in her kitchen, like, what am I going to do next? So, but what happened is, things just happened for me. So within a week, I had a friend who found out I was available, and he's like, I'm going to hire you. Can I please hire you as a full-time contractor to help me launch my small business initiative? And then another friend, can I hire you to help us launch our course? And another friend, can I hire you to write my ebook and advise this other person I'm working with? So within that first month, I made over $10,000 in consulting revenue, and I booked over $35,000. And the booked number was important for me because I knew, like, oh wow, I'm not only eating, this month, but I actually have some money that's coming for the next few months. So I guess I should just try to do this thing and work on my own. So that's kind of how Culture Ad Labs started. Was just kind of like by accident, I guess. And, all those years of giving free advice to friends kind of caught up to me, where they were like, oh, you're available? Well, you gave me good advice before. Let me pay you for it this time since you're free.
I love it. I've been through a layoff personally myself, so I understand there's something about that experience that makes you determined never to be in that situation ever again. Like, you embrace the multiple streams, you embrace what is my passion, what is my talent, and how can I profit from it, because I'm not repeating this cycle.
Exactly, yes.
Danielle, when I think of you, the word grit comes to mind. You have been dedicated to the process of continually developing your brand and your core services. What is the mindset, strategy, and the takeaways that you have molded within yourself to being a sought after coach?
That's a great question. So one major breakthrough that I had was, two big things. The first was this concept of integrity. So I went to Landmark. Have you been to Landmark, Michelle, or heard of it?
I have, yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So, yes, I did the Landmark program. My friend, actually Tara, Tara too. She's the one who recommended it to me. Yes. So she recommended it. She's like, listen, I just did it. It was amazing. You should do it. Anything Tara tells me to do, I do it.
Okay.
And so I went, and it was incredible. And so after doing the intro and then the advanced course, I realized there is this concept called integrity. And what it means is that when you can create something with your words, say, I'm going to do this thing, and then you do that thing. And that's how simple it is. But guess what? It's not easy. And I realized I lacked integrity and throughout most of my life. And I realized that for the longest time, for most of my life, I've been an overachiever, high achiever. So I was usually, top performer in the class or getting the best grades, whatever, right? And because of that, I didn't really develop this muscle of saying something and doing it, right? And what I realized is, and someone used this analogy that was perfect. He said, you've been driving this car around town that has some gaps in integrity, but guess what? It's been getting you around town just fine, right? Because you only riding 25 miles per hour. So you're doing just fine getting to where you need to go. But now that your business is getting, once I started getting past 80K per year in revenue, and it was going a little past the 100K, the 6-figure mark, that's when it was time to take that same car and get on the freeway. And when you get on the freeway, that's the next level in your business. And that's when those same gaps in integrity that got you around at 25 miles per hour, when you get on that freeway and you need to go 70 miles per hour, oh, that car is going to break down after about 3 miles. You're going to start seeing some things flying, overheating. And so that's what I saw coming, and I knew it was coming. And so what I learned is all those gaps in integrity, me dropping the ball on things, not getting back to people, not planning my day, not exercising, right? All those things I knew got me here, but they weren't going to get me there. So that was one big shift for me, was realizing this concept of creating a reality, a possibility with my word, and then keeping that by having my actions follow that. So that was the first shift. And then the second shift was focus. So my entire life, I've been multi-passionate, president of this, also doing this, also doing this. And even in, my business, it was the same thing. When you found those random videos of me on YouTube from back in the day, girl, I had 5 different blogs I started over 2 months. I was in these internet streets doing the most all the time. And so what I learned is, and I'll give you an example, 1 year of my business, let me see. So for instance, a year ago. So January, a year ago, 2017, I was working on completely a new product. So I was working on this thing called the Start Your Course Bootcamp. So I took the entire, January, just recreating this thing, reinventing the wheel, thinking I had to start over, instead of just amplifying what I'd already built, which was Course from scratch. So I had a lack of focus, right? I thought I had to reinvent something. I needed to create something new. Because of that, my cash flow suffered. So in January, a year ago, I made, I think maybe, $0, maybe $200 or something from a client, right? A year later, this January, $40,000, right? And that's just a year later. And my biggest month last year was $25,000, right? My biggest month this year so far, well, we're still completing the month, but in the first 6 weeks of this year, I've done over $100,000 in revenue. That is almost how much I made in the entire of last year. So I made an entire year of revenue in the first 6 weeks of this year. And the difference is integrity and focus. So in October, I decided I am going full out, balls to the wall with Course from scratch. That's it. So that's when I got serious. I hired a coach, figured out my funnel, got really just focused on that. I turned down speaking engagements, podcast interviews, all kinds of stuff. I turned it down. I said, if it's not helping me with my webinar, with my funnel, with this one product, making sure my sales process is tight, making sure my students are getting the best results, then I ain't doing it. I'm gonna revisit it, next year. So because of that extreme focus, it got me way, way further.
So 2018 is going to be phenomenal for you.
Absolutely. That's what it looks like.
Because of integrity and focus.
Yes.
I love it. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
So what are some aha moments you wish entrepreneurs and 9-to-5ers wanting to make a career change or finally take the leap and launch the side hustle they've been talking about over the cooler? What would you like for them to understand? What understanding would you want them to have about being a digital content creator? Yes.
So one major thing, if you get this and execute on it, you will be ahead of, 99% of people who ever attempt a side hustle or full-time, thing. And it is just understanding the order of operations of the 3 C's, which is customers, content, and conversions. So usually when people are getting started, they'll get caught up on, what am I going to create? And they are in this dream state, or they're over researching things. So they're online doing all this research. How big is the market? Who can I reach? When the place you need to start is your customer. Who is your customer? And I don't care if you're doing paid speaking engagements or creating an online course or, opening a food truck. you need to start with who your customer is, right? So as, you know, if you want to do paid speaking engagements, the customer is the person who's going to hire you to speak, right? So it could be the director of student services at a college or whatever it is, right? So that's where you start. You don't start with, what is this? You know, what's the topic, or what kind of content am I going to create? Let me start this blog. Start with the customer. And when you know who the customer is, and I mean get real specific, get on the phone with them. So you're going to get on the phone with this person. If you identify my target customer is Meredith, because I know Meredith and I actually gave her advice and she said, girl, when you're ready, I want to pay you for this advice because you're amazing. Meredith is your perfect customer. So be like, Meredith is 42 years old. She lives in Atlanta with her husband and her 3 kids. She works in, you know, diversity and inclusion as a director, and she's looking for this kind of person to come into the organization and speak to us. Here's how much she makes. Here's what keeps her up at night. You have that profile. Go out and find 3 more Merediths to get on the phone with. And you're going to get on the phone with these people. That's it. You don't have to have everything worked out. You don't even have to have an idea of what you're doing. Meredith is going to tell you exactly what to do. She's going to tell you what her biggest challenge is in the language she likes to use. She's going to tell you what she's tried in the past that has failed. And she's just going to reveal to you what her point A is, where you are, to her point B, where she wants to be. She's going to reveal point A, point B to you, right? And that's it. That's a phone call. When you get off that call, your job is to create the bridge from point A to point B. When you create that bridge, that's the beginning of you determining, okay, what is my offer? What is my offer? What service or product am I offering? What features and benefits does it have that's going to get Meredith from point A to point B? Because guess what? If you get somebody from point A to point B and it's an urgent pain point, they're going to pay you for it as long as they're, you know, an MVP, most valuable payer. But they're going to pay you for it. So that's like that's how you start. I just talked to so many people who are like, you know, I'm writing my business plan right now and I'm on page 5 of my business plan. And I'm like, you need to rip that thing and throw it up in the fire and just get on the phone with your prospects. That's going to get you so much further and get you your first customer. I mean, that practice alone can get you your first customer in a week, and a high paying customer at that. So I would say that's like one fundamental thing that people need to understand is it starts with your customer. Once you know who your customer is, you can determine what kind of content you need to create to attract them, whether it's a cold email. So you might even send an email over LinkedIn or whatever, right? Trying to get your speaking engagement or whatever you're trying to get. It might start with that. It might be a webinar. That's a piece of content. It might be Instagram post. It might be podcasts, right? But then you'll determine what content you're going to create. And then lastly is conversions. How are you going to leverage that content to get people to pay you for what you have? So customers, content, conversions. Once you understand that circle, it's a circle of life, girl. It's a circle of business life.
It is the client avatar. Like it's so key to the success. Like you're saying, like to the success of your business. And some people like to skip that process. People have to take the time to it's like vision, right? Vision boarding, journaling, like scripting it out. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that one. How do you keep your clients focused on authentically building their brand, their voice, and like just their overall online presence without duplicating brands that they admire?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes. You have great questions, Michelle. Killing it.
Thank you.
So that's actually at the heart of why my company is called Culture Ad Labs. What I found when I was working at startups is when we were hiring someone, we would ask the question, is this person a culture fit? Right? So do they have the same values as us? Do they have the same belief systems? Do they work like us? But what I found is when we said, is this person a culture fit? What that ended up meaning is, do they look just like us? Do they sound just like us? Do they have the same interests as us? And what I realized is that's not actually the most valuable hire. That's not the most valuable player you can have on your team. Instead of looking at people as a culture fit, you should look at, are they a culture add? Do they add something different? Do they add a diverse voice, a diverse perspective? So that's why I named my company Culture Ad Labs, and why I am committed to helping people uncover their culture ad and packaging it and being able to articulate it and package it in the world to make a difference, right? And reach their customers and get paid for their views. So one thing that really that we focus on in Course from Scratch, anyone I work with, it is, what is your culture ad, right? So there's a whole framework we go through, but essentially you're going to look at what are those belief systems that you've had? What are those unique experiences you've had? I have this brag bank exercise where you brag on yourself. It's kind of like a master resume, but you get really detailed. So instead of saying, for instance, if you're trying to market something and I say, I'm going to teach you how to pre-sell your online course. Okay, that's one version. Or I'm going to show you how I made $8,000 in 7 days pre-selling my online course with no existing email list. Do you see the difference in that? So the litmus test is that, can someone else say this? And with how to learn how to pre-sell your course, if I said anybody else in my industry who's teaching courses can say that, but no one else in the world can say, I did 8K in 7 days with no email list, working with this blogger to help me. So that's what we really get to the heart of, is what are the detailed, specific brag bank talking points that you have that you can bring to light, right? So that's like the first thing, and it can act as a magnet because people know, okay, you're legitimate, but also I can relate to that. Another thing you look at that helps set you apart is you examine what are the misconceptions in your market that are constantly being paraded around, and you have unique beliefs that counter those misconceptions. So, for instance, a huge misconception in my industry is that it takes a lot of time to create a course, right? It takes a lot of time. You got to design slides. You have to script your videos, hire a video team to record those videos. Like, it takes a lot of time. So what I've done is I've unpacked that, and I say, you know what? We're about to turn this upside down and disrupt it, because you actually don't need any pre-recorded content to launch your course. So that's when I came up with my own framework methodology called, the MVC method, the minimum viable course method, where I show you how to pre-sell your course. So you get customers before you even have any content, right? And I walk you through that system. So for you, what I would say, ask yourself is, what are those misconceptions that are like common knowledge that people treat as truth and as fact in your industry that you can counter with a new way? Okay. And that leads to the next thing that sets you apart. You are then going to create a methodology or a framework that shows people step by step how to get success. So again, for me, I found the misconception. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of tech, and I can't get traction. I created the MVC method to counter all of those, showing you how to create your course content in just one day, how to launch with no tech, and how to guarantee you do a 10K launch by following the escape formula, right? So what you're going to do is ask yourself, what are those steps for success for my customer? Going back to Meredith, y'all, let's go back to Meredith. How can we take Meredith from point A to point B? What are the steps for success? And then create your own unique framework and methodology. Guess what? Ain't nobody else talking about the MVC method or the escape method or the tasty content. These are all frameworks that I created, right, based on misconceptions in the market. So that's one thing we talk a lot about, right? Your culture ad leads to your unique, diverse view on the market. It leads to you being able to create your unique recipe for success, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people, the food pyramid, even. All of those are frameworks and methodologies. And again, that's what sets you apart in your niche and helps you be positioned to get paid a premium, because ain't nobody else talking about your special method.
I hear you. Yeah, I think the first thing I heard from you was tasty, and I'm like, that is a great breakdown. I think it's great. So thank you. Now, one thing for sure, a lot of people, I think a lot of people know that you have to make an investment. So my audience, they know that you need an investment in your dreams. And what does that mean? So what type of investments, personally and financially, do you suggest to new and seasoned content creators that they need to make in themselves and in their brand? What does that look like?
Yeah. So to be honest, so of course we all have access to time and money, right? At any point. And so first I would just examine, what do you have access to at the moment? Do you have more time or do you have more money? Because that's going to determine how you spend your resources. So for me, when I was getting started, I had no money, but I had time. So what I did with that time is I found the Brendans, the Maries, all the people who were like 20 steps ahead of me and maybe a few years ahead of me. And I studied them. I opted into their email list. I reverse engineered whatever they were doing. And I realized every industry doesn't have, gurus who are out there with email lists and stuff like that. So I would say do your best to research those people and reverse engineer their success. If you can dig up podcast interviews that they've done, any press they've gotten, you could even reach out to them and take their booties to coffee if you can, right? Anywhere you can get this information. If you have more time and less money, do that. Do that research, reverse engineer what others have done. So that was the first thing I did. When you start having money, here's a huge no-no. Like a lot of people end up investing all this money into a website. That's like the first thing they invest in. Here's why that is a terrible, terrible idea. Remember when we talked about customers, content, conversions? Well, customers, you need to start with who your customers are. If you don't know who your customers are, what makes you think that you're going to be able to create a website that attracts them, right? So what I actually recommend is to not invest money in a website, in like a professionally designed website or anything like that, because that's not where you're going to be doing your sales, right? You're either going to be selling over the phone or maybe through a cold email or something. So you don't need a $5,000 whatever website. I just now got a professionally designed website like last month, and I've been in business for a long time. Before that, I just would hack something ugly together and call it a day. So what I would invest in, though, is if you have the money, would be a coach, right? So in your early days, it's really useful to work with a coach if you can, as opposed to a course at large. It depends on what kind of person you are, right? But if you can if you're not necessarily self-motivated and can, figure it out or whatever, I would recommend working with a coach if you can, or consultant, but someone who's going to give you that one-on-one attention to show you this is what you do, here's your unique roadmap, and we're going to check in and I'm going to hold you accountable once, every week or whatever. So, for instance, last year when I was at a point in my business where I knew it was time to level up, I paid 2 coaches like $10,000. That was the most I'd ever paid for coaching, right? And so it was so worth the investment because that has now led to this, $100K in sales in 6 weeks because I made that $10K investment. So these people were vetted, right? I knew their numbers. I knew who they worked with before. I knew that they were legit. So when you can find someone like that, and I worked with them closely one-on-one, they helped me, level up, right? So that is what accelerated me on this path. So that's what I would say to invest in, as opposed to a website or a brand or a logo. My best friend, Crystal Rory, who did my website, she's an amazing designer. Chris did it, is her site. She only works with people who have been in business for 2 years or more. The reason is those people know exactly what needs to go on their website. They know who their customer is, what language to use, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I would say hold off on any of the branding, the logo, the website. That stuff is actually overrated. It is way more important to you to get clear about who your customer is, how to talk to them, and how to get a sale from them. And you don't need a website or anything like that to do that. So that's what I would say.
Great advice. Great advice. And I think it's great, like when you just shared, like people should just research people, which is, stating the obvious to some, but going back and listening to podcasts or, like you said, researching their site, get on their email list, because you can always find the most unexpected nuggets of wisdom or information that you need and you didn't know you needed. Mm-hmm. So it just helps save you money, save you maybe one, like, what am I going to do next? So I think that's great.
Yes.
I think that is so great. So what are a few of your favorite transformations that you've seen from working with content creators? Because I'm sure you've seen a few that you're just like, okay, this is excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say in the earlier days, it would be when I was at Udemy, I got to work with a kids yoga teacher. And when she came, she was doing YouTube videos. So she has these amazing YouTube videos teaching kids how to do yoga using just fun movies like the Frozen edition. And it was a wife and husband team. And this was their first digital product. And so watching her go from, these YouTube videos to launching a $500 program. And when they came to me, they didn't have an email list. And so I said, here's what we're going to do. We are going to take then at the time they had 1,000 Facebook likes. So I'm like, we are going to take those 1,000 Facebook likes, we going to turn them into an email list, and we going to launch to them. And that's exactly what we did. And so in the first 30 days, we took 1,000 of those Facebook likes, turned it into 100 email subscribers, and turned that into a $10,000 course launch in the first 30 days. And so what they've done has been amazing. So they read the book, I recommended the book Launch by Jeff Walker. Mm-hmm. So they read that book. They got really involved in that world and in the strategies. And so fast forward to today, they've got a membership site. They're doing multiple six figures. And you wouldn't have guessed that, someone teaching kids yoga can make something like that happen. So that was amazing to watch. There's also a singer who was on paper very accomplished. Right? She was in doing a Broadway tour. She was a published author, had all the right things going. But behind the scenes, she was barely making ends meet. And she was trying to do singing coaching over Skype. And so this was her first digital product. And she had YouTube videos as well. This was her first digital product. And I mean, fast forward to today, she did, $140,000 launch of her course. And is doing multiple six figures a year from singing, right? So again, I love these because these are not people doing business courses or tech courses or making money online. And the last one I'll share with you is Anna. She created the homemade method. So she works with people who are age 50 or above, who are like pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, and she shows them how to cook their own food at home to completely transform their health. She has the most crazy testimonials I've ever seen in my life. Like, she has changed these people's lives. It's insane the results she gets. And when she came to me, she was just burnt out. She was doing these in-person workshops, driving to the South Peninsula, for 3 hours a day and doing these workshops. And she was like, I am about to have a baby. We need to figure this out quick. And so we took her program, put it online, did that first launch. She did a $12,000 launch for her first one. Wow. And then she, 3 months later, did a $20,000 launch, then did a $30,000 launch. And it's been amazing to watch. Like, now her daughter is, I think, over a year old now. And now she, they spent 6 weeks in Australia while she was doing a launch because she has the systems in place that are working. She's able to work at home with her daughter and actually spend time with her and see her. It's so amazing that, like, she's no longer a slave to her business, but she's making her business work for what she wants to do in her life. So those are just a few. There are so many. Those are just a few to share.
When you said systems, and by the way, those were phenomenal shares. But when you said systems, it made me think of Tim Ferriss and how I was listening to one of his interviews, or maybe I was reading some of his material, how he, because he has systems in place, he can be off the map for months at a time, and people would never know because his content is still publishing on time with the established systems. Like, people have no idea how, well, some people do because they're already doing it, but how amazing their life can go to another level just by creating systems and knowing that they don't have to be on the grind every day if they get it together.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's so funny because I read the 4-Hour Work Week back in like 2007, but I didn't realize what that actually looks like until probably last year. It's like, and it's insane. And it was, it's at one point it was when I was like on vacation, and a launch was happening, and I had the Stripe notifications coming on my phone, and I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Because I've launched before, but I never did it when I was out of town. And I was like, whoa, this is a real thing. Or it was last year when I realized yo, I'm only working a few hours a week, like only have to work a few hours a week because I have a virtual assistant who is updating my webinar page for me, scheduling my emails for me, and I just got to show up. And that's like the ideal. So absolutely, like it's such a shift. And when it happens to you, you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
But it takes time, though. It does take time.
Yes.
You got to be patient with the process. And watching you, I definitely see that you've been patient with your process.
Yes.
Maybe
it's
not,
taking a minute, girl.
Maybe not easily, but.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Totally.
Danielle, how do you stay current with industry knowledge and trends?
So, for one, for a lot of things, I love ads. So I love Facebook ads. So if I see your Facebook ad, and because I'm, in the industry, I get targeted obviously by everybody in my industry. So I will click through to those ads. I will save those ads. I'll opt into their funnel. So a lot of my learning just happens by doing. So I will opt onto their email list. I'll go through their funnel. I'll watch their webinar, see what they're doing. And that's how I learn like the little things that are making a difference, like, messenger bots, things like that. So that's the first thing. Another thing is podcasts. So I will listen to things like Digital Marketers Podcast. They have a great one. And a couple others, like Amy Porterfield has a great one. And if I ever have a question about something where I'm like, okay, I'm creating a video Facebook ad. What are the best practices here? What's the latest that people are doing? I will Google, video Facebook ad in podcasts. So I'll look at it in iTunes or in my podcast app to see, okay, let me find a podcast episode that was published a month ago. So that's another way I get like specific information. And the other thing would be I actually have like built-in accountability buddies. So I have like a few friends. So every Monday, I talk to Anna. Every Tuesday, I talk to Tara. Every Thursday, I meet with my two friends, Cliff and Mandela. And so I talk to people who are always looking like Anna. She's up on SEO and what's happening. And so we swap secrets. And so that's like something that's helped me a lot. And as a lone, entrepreneur, solo founder, it's been really important for me to build in those systems where I'm checking in with people and staying sharp. And the last thing is I recently joined a mastermind group. So mastermind, if you can find the right one, can be super useful because you're with peers who are, doing cutting edge stuff in their respective industries that you can apply to yours as well.
Accountability.
Yes. Yes.
Accountability. What are a few things that you do to get those creative juices flowing to create that amazing content that you offer?
Ooh, so it's interesting because I don't actually dedicate a lot of my calendar time to creating content. And the reason is I'm definitely I call myself like a business minimalist. So I like to do the least and get the most out of it. So, my Instagram account, for instance, as of now, I post on average 1 to 2 times per month. Most people say, to grow your Instagram, you need to post once a day or whatever. And I'm like, that's cool, but I'm just going to use this automation software, grow it for me, and then I'll just post once, twice a month. The reason I do that is because if I got caught up in creating content all the time, I wouldn't have enough time to grow it and, to market. So I would say, for just as a precursor, I definitely limit my content creation at the moment. But when I do need to write an email or something, a couple things I do. So I keep a swipe file of emails. So email, would be one piece of content that I need to create that needs to be inspired and, moving and really compelling to get people to act. So I save emails from other people that I really like, that I find really inspiring. So I will go and read those emails that I've saved in my Gmail and tagged to get inspiration. And I also do that for Instagram. So when I do need to write like a post for Instagram, I try to make every post tasty. And so I will go and look at my bookmarked Instagram posts from other people I follow, and I'll read their posts for inspiration. Another thing I will do is try to have the best morning I can. So at this point, I have an idea of how to set myself up, if to have my brain firing as much as it can. And so I will get an amazing night's sleep. Right before I go to bed, I will say, all right, tomorrow I'm going to be writing this email, and I'll kind of think through it before I go to bed. I'll get an amazing night's sleep. When I wake up in the morning, I'll go work out. So I'll usually either do, treadmill, like, what is it called? The fast and slow interval running or whatever, when you run really fast and you slow it down. Anyway, y'all can tell I know a lot about fitness, but I do that. But something to get my heart rate up. And while I do that, I will listen to an ebook or I'll listen to a podcast episode. And that way, like, my brain is just at work, just getting fired up. And then, after that, shower, have my little eggs and smoothie, and then I will go. So that's the final thing I'll do, is kind of like just set myself up where I have the most amazing morning to create that content.
So you use tasty again in the interview. So will you tell the listeners what tasty means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So tasty stands for, and tasty content is just content that gets people to take an action. So T is for teaches, so your content teaches them something. It provides action steps. It solves an urgent pain point. It transforms them from point A to point B, and it addresses their deeper why. So that spells out TASTY for tasty. And it doesn't have to address all 5 principles, but just make sure your content includes at least one of those tasty principles. And I would say from there, like, you will be doing way more than a lot of people in your industry.
So true. So true. So please tell me, do not keep me in suspense. What is next for Culture? I want to know, like, what's next for Culture Ad Labs?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, like, this is definitely the year of focus and the year of one. I found that, one webinar, one sales funnel, one course led to crazy returns and transformation for myself, but also for my students. The results that my students are getting now by me just focusing on course from scratch, improving it, making it more streamlined, has been crazy and unprecedented. So that's the theme. So I'm going to stay focused on course from scratch, keep doing my webinars. The goal was to do 1 million by December, but at this point with this growth, I'm really excited to say, like, I'm confident that will happen before that. So that's like what's next, is we are going to keep our head down and keep doing that. The next thing in terms of behind the scenes is I'll be hiring. So I've done most of this as a one-woman show. And I know that things going to start falling apart, getting back to those gaps in integrity. This car is going to start falling apart if I keep driving it by myself. So that's the next thing for me. It's going to be actually focusing on, like, the back office and hiring my friend. I did a mastermind retreat this past weekend, and one of the members, Clifton Henry, an amazing artist, he said, "You are the talent and you need to find your producer." So all this time I had been trying to hire a virtual assistant or a content writer or whatever, instead of finding my ace who will then manage those people for me. Like, I should not be managing multiple people. I should have a point of contact who manages my entire situation. And so I have one point of contact to check into. So that's been a recent revelation for me. And thanks to Cliff, thanks for that mastermind group. And so that's the next thing I'm focusing on.
I love it. Knowing where you are and adjusting accordingly. That's so key.
Yes, absolutely.
Danielle, I totally appreciate you being a guest on the Career Tipper podcast. Please end this episode with your favorite quote or affirmation that keeps you creating career tipping moments.
Ooh, I would say it would have to be that your difference is your greatest asset. So just going back to the fact that whatever makes you different is what you need to amplify and highlight and package and articulate, because that is what's going to get you way further than anybody else around you.
High five. I'm like shaking a few shoulders. I love it. Absolutely love it. So please share how listeners can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So DanielleLeslie.com, and I'm also Danielle Leslie on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And then, you can find me, Danielle Leslie, across all platforms, Facebook and Twitter as well.
And you can find me, Michelle Beatty, at careertipper.com and on Instagram at careertipper. Please sign up for our newsletter to find out about upcoming episodes and career tipping advice. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until next time, be confidently you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Career Tipper Podcast. We're grateful for our listeners and guests. For more resources about how to evolve to your professional best, share your comments and feedback about this episode and your suggestions for future guests, visit careertipper.com. Until next time, be confidently you.